Gotta make kindness cool again. Let it rise today. Make kindness real again. Let cruelty fall away. Love your neighbor, help a friend. That's how broken hearts can mend. If we're gonna heal, we need to begin to make kindness cool again.
Welcome everyone to the Saturday brunch today from the Home Church in Morahan. And welcome John and anybody else that's watching online. And so today our speaker is Dr. Paige Morahan, our accomplished artist and friend. And so I'll let Paige explain what she's going to talk about. But welcome Paige.
Welcome, Paige.
Thank you. We're here today for me to tell you about how I created the calendar for next year, which is messages of kindness from around the world, and the whole creation process of how I do it. The first slide will show the logo of InThealth, which is the parent organization that the organization that I'm part of, Foundation for Advancement of International Medical Education and International Medical Education and Research. That's I've been part of since 2001, when we started our International Institute. We now have over 2,000 faculty from dental, medical, nursing, physical therapy, etc. schools around the world who've been through our programs, 40 countries who've been involved, and we have 10 regional programs in the world. We've got 4 in India, that's our largest contingent, 2 in China, 1 in Indonesia. We had 1 in South Africa. We now have 1 in Uganda for the Eastern Africa, 1 in Egypt, and we did have 1 in Brazil that I went down to for 12 years. And that stopped when the government changed to Bolsonaro. And then we have 1 in Chile for Spanish-speaking Latin Americans. So some of our Brazilians who know Spanish also teaching that way. So that's why it's InThealth. And so InThealth includes both FAMR and then ECFMG, which is the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. Any foreign medical graduate has to pass their exam and their credentials to know who they are in order to practice in the U.S. So that's the organization. My whole business is to help support FAMR and improve health around the world. So let's get into the calendar. The next slide. So I think all of you in the room have entered a drawing for the calendar, and I add John in, and we'll add anyone else. So this will be a dust calendar. One of these will be raffled off at the end. So now let's go into the history of making calendars. I've talked to you all before about the history of the calendar, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. So before 2001, I created calendars for friends. So we'd have like 20 different photographs that I portion out on 20 different calendars, times 12, or how many, it was a lot of, and Jillian Bedford helped me in all this pasting preparation. And then sometime in the late 1990s, I moved to printing. But in 2001, when we started the FAMR Institute, I realized very soon that I like to send congratulations cards, happy birthday cards, and I realized you cannot send them by mail. They're not going to get to Uganda in time. So I started creating e-cards, and then that evolved as I got to know the fellows better, and I got fascinated with the languages and wanted to honor languages. I speak English. I did learn Latin, and I did learn a little French and a little German. But it's not like people in India have to learn 4 languages in order to practice medicine. So, we're so fortunate in not having to learn languages. So I got fascinated, so then I started making multi-language cards. And then from 2006 to 2020, I created calendars that usually had themes, annual focus. If I had a trip to the Amazon and Galapagos, or subject flowers, cacti, oceans, public art. So I created it, and then I gave them as gifts to the directors when they came to the Institute, or someone from their country did, so they could get them. But then that stopped with the pandemic. So one of the reasons I'm fascinated with languages is, as I said, English is the top most spoken language, but it's not the most spoken native language. We're just so fortunate that we have all the people around the world who use that English has become.
Can I ask you, is English the most common second language?
No, it's down about third or fourth. So the ones you can see, Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish. Spanish is, I think, really above English. And then French, Arabic, Bengali, Russian, Portuguese. So I got fascinated with these languages. So I have been investigating languages ever since. And you'll see the outcome of that in a minute. So I think this one moves. So this was like initially I made like a congratulations card. Then I started using languages. And then these are examples of some of the calendars I've made, the covers. Public art. This was the Terracotta Warriors, was in the window there. And butterflies 1 year. I think that's, and then Amazon in 2019.
Oh.
So that shows you until the pandemic. So now, the recent history with the pandemic, an artist friend of mine challenged me to make something every week. And joy, as many of you know, has been my mantra for years. So I decided to put it around quotes about joy. So I created 52 images of either flowers or nature or from around the world that had quotes about joy in them. And I'm still thinking about making a book to put together, but I haven't done that yet. And then that led to me getting more involved in art as I was semi-retired at that point. So in November 2021, so we're almost coming up to 4 years, I launched a website and pages around the world to support FAMR. And then we started doing a word theme with the pandemic. And now I have 34 languages in the calendar this year. So let's look at some of those calendars. Next slide, please. So this is the calendar that's coming up. So there are 34 different languages. And if you'll notice, kind of a common word with the Romance languages, Kabatan, Kabakina, for the Filipino, Javanese, Malay, Indonesian. So there are some commonalities in some areas. Okay, let's look at some other calendars. This was the first one, Messages of Joy. See, there weren't quite as many languages. Next one was Light, Messages of Light around the world. The next one, Messages of Courage. This is a part of a fabric art in the Freedom Museum in Cincinnati. And the next one is this past year, which some of you have in your desks right now, is resilience. And what's happened is I've put out an email and asked people to vote on the calendar topic. We do this in January. And then it's whatever the most get. And it's amazing to me, like resilience was chosen in January of 2024, which is before the election. And little did we know that in January of 2025 we would need so much resilience. And then kindness came out for this year and for next year. And heaven knows we've seen evidence of needing much more kindness around the world. So it's really sort of uncanny how this comes out. So that's where we are now, and we will be voting on if you're on my email list, we'll be voting on the calendar topic for 2027 in January. Oh, by the way, this is a sculpture that's a child's story that's well known in Belgium of a little boy who was homeless and he was being protected by his dog. And this is a sculpture that is in the middle of the square in front of the Antwerp Cathedral. And it goes, this blanket, tapers down to the floor, to the surface, and kids are always on it. So I had to do a fair amount of work in Lightroom to get it to be only that. Okay, so let's go. And I want to have a shout out here to all my translators around the world who have helped do this. So this is all of them. You can see I have a lot of them from India because there's so many different languages in India that people have. And then in Africa, none of the languages get up to the top 10 or 20 because there's so many different languages in Africa. But Hausa and Yoruba and Swahili and Afrikaans tend to cover. So that's in the Portuguese. Valdez has a collection of over 10 of my calendars in his office. Shout out to thank all of the people who translate for me.
That's
I
nice.
couldn't do this, and by the way, only about 60, I do processes, I go to Google and I translate. And then I send it out for checking, and about 60% are correct, 40% still are not correct in Google. So just remember that when you're relying on Google.
Wow. I'm glad you have those experts.
Right. Okay. So what makes this calendar unique? This year's got 13 images from 13 countries, from 5 continents, and 30 plus languages. And it's a global collaboration in creation. One way is selection of the word. The other way is I also put out a shout out to submit quotes. And if it's a quote I don't have and I use it, then I send the person a little gift. And then 100% of the proceeds support global health education. So now we're on to the process for this year's calendar, which is similar. So in January, we're going to vote and we random draw to announce the winner. Okay. And that person would get a calendar later on. February and April, I gather and check the translation accuracy. Then April to June, I'm collecting quotes and I'm requesting additional quotes for the gift, deciding on the images, and then creating 15 plus images because I want to have a few extra with quotes. And then in July, we vote for the top images to include, and a random drawn in another winner or calendar. And then August to September, I launch the calendar. And so this is part of this stage, early bird sale, which we've already had. And then I'm now talking about the process. Okay, so I wanted you to know that combining images and words is not a simple matter. Like this was the original picture there. So, and I selected this one. I had others that had kids, on this mound. And so it took a fair amount of work to get it to that stage where I could use it. So just, not every photograph can work. Even though many photographs I love, they just don't work with quotes. Okay, so next. So how are the picture and quote criteria? I want to have 5 continents. I have been to Australia and New Zealand, but that was before digital photography, so I don't have those available. I don't plan to go to Antarctica. So I think 5 may be it unless I get back to Australia and New Zealand. The photo has to somehow fit with the quote, and not all of them do. The photo can visually include the quote. We've talked about that a little bit. And the photos fit with the seasons. I try to do that. The seasons in Pennsylvania, not in the Southern Hemisphere. Or or monthly use, like you'll see for February and July. And then I want to have quotes from different viewpoints and varied backgrounds. So let's go into,
Okay, I have a question. When you say the photo fits with a quote, do you mean
like,
it illustrates the quote, or physically you can get the quote to fit?
it's both. It's
Oh.
both. Yes, for instance, you'll see a quote about kindness giving rootlets. So I used a tree. Or another one, kindness being ripples. So I used ripples in a stream. So yes, so it's a fairly interesting process. So let's look at an example here that shows this one, which is in February. So this was a nice quote because I had a nice image because I had plenty of space around it too, although I did blur the background even more to make it clearer. So it could visually include it. And did it fit with the quote? I think it's the capacity of love, kindness, and forgiveness. And I think a mother with her chicks, so it fits with that. So that gets back to your second criteria you talked about. Does it fit with the season? So here in Pennsylvania, it's Valentine's Day, and I picked up the pink that's over the eye of the penguin. This is a Cape penguin, unique to South Africa. So I picked that up in that color. And then quotes from different viewpoints. This is from an American Indian or Cree ancestry. So that gives you an example of kind of my thought process of how I put things together. So, and then quotes, as I look at them, every word, kindness, what does kindness mean? It's like, what does light mean? What does resilience mean? What does courage mean? So when I go through the quotes, one thing that came up was kind of universal interconnectedness. There were 3 quotes that did that. Our universal interconnectedness or our shared humanity. 3 quotes. There's one from Amma, who's a guru in India, but may all beings everywhere be happy and free. Another one from Joy Harjo, who's a Native American, and was the first Native American to be poet laureate of the U.S. Sacred field of meaning where humans rely on earth and sun. And Buddha's teaching about loving kindness, it's basic one of Buddhism towards all beings. So that was kind of the universal interconnectedness coming out. Then another one is kindness is transformation, and that's where the ones with the rootlets come in. In January you'll see snow showing how kindness beautifies everything it covers. I think that's a beautiful quote. On Brazilian wisdom, there's a prophet in Brazil who said kindness generates kindness. And so, kind of active. Morgan Freeman, who's African American, and I had other quotes in this area, but I chose his because of random acts of kindness changing the world, because I wanted to have an African American. And then St. Basil, that plant kindness and gather love. Kindness and strength is another one. And there's a quote by Franklin Roosevelt that I used in July that I think really epitomizes that. And then Howard Zinn talks about compassion as part of humanity's resilience. And then one is that kindness is a choice. You can choose to be kind, or you can choose not to be kind. So I think that was important. And finally, of course, all of these encompass of a spiritual, sacred dimension, connecting to something larger. So also we've talked about the geographic diversity, representation, the gender, this is now from the quotes. Graphic representation, some are U.S., some are Asia, some are like Geneleza, Brazil. The gender balance, there are 3 women this year. I try to have at least some. Cultural religious diversity, we had quotes from Buddha, from Hindu heritage, from Native American, from Catholic, and then beyond Western dominance. So now let's go through the images. Here's a sneak preview. This is right outside my front door, looking at the trees and the snow that we had this past year. And this is the quote by Khalil Gibran: kindness is like snow, it beautifies everything it covers, showing that kind of transformation. And then already shown the one by the Cree activist Clayton Thomas Muller: the most renewable energy on the planet is not solar energy, capacity for love, kindness, and forgiveness. And that's USA and South Africa. Okay. I think those, I just happened to get those, that little cluster of her mother and chicks, you know, where they really were all quite visible. And then March was from Canada. That's the Morgan Freeman quote: one random act of kindness at a time. So small acts, we all can do small acts of kindness and it will help change the world. And then Netherlands for April. And this one, you may notice here that I have blurred the background right between the trees there so that the quote shows better. So there's things like that that I do when it's not completely clear. So humans rely on kindness of earth and sun. We exist together in a sacred field of meaning. So kind of environmental Earth Day in April, as well as tulips will be in April. Okay, so that's from Europe and Canada. And now we go to the Galapagos in Scotland for the next 2 months. And this is the one where you had a tree. It really shows what I talked about with the tree of our life being firmly rooted in the soil of love and kindness. Let us grow and unfold as one family, united in love in a world where peace and content are prevail. That's Amma is a major spiritual figure in India, Hinduism. And then in Scotland, I love this quote: plant kindness and gather love. And I didn't at the time, I said proverb. However, I've now discovered it was really written by St. Basil, who was a Greek, Russian Orthodox Catholic, you know, in that era, early era. So going to the next 2 months. So here's July and August. This is the quote by Franklin D. Roosevelt: human kindness has never weakened the stamina nor softened the fiber of free people. A nation does not have to be cruel to be tough.
Yep, that's something we need to hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a whole group of flags around the world for a soccer tournament that was held in Qatar.
Cool.
And Brazil, I saw this beach many, many times because that's where our meeting was held, right next to this beach. And this is a prophet who was just a homegrown prophet, not very wealthy in Brazil, but he was known as the prophet of kindness. And this was his phrase: kindness generates kindness, and gentileza gera gentileza. So again, kind of active. Kindness begets kindness. Okay, so moving on to September and October. This one is interesting for a number of reasons. One, I had to do a fair amount of work in Lightroom to get rid of the people that were behind the kids that were distracting. And so I wanted to show kids kind of for September going back to school. So that was that one. And Indonesia, this was October. This is the loving kindness one. It's compassion for all living beings, including this Asian monitor lizard in Indonesia. And which we watched, I'd say I watched him for about a half an hour, slithering through the water lilies in Bali. But I tend to choose kind of a strange animal or something for October, you know, Halloween. Now the last 2 months, November and December. So India, this is the one showing that kindness is a choice, and choose wisely. So respect is a choice. Whatever choice makes you, so choose wisely. And then this is, again, the ripple effect. You create one tiny gesture of kindness from Elka Summer, actress. This is Uganda, right now. So those are the pictures that I picked this year. This was a temple in Delhi that we saw. And I like having the people and the bird looking at it.
So do you think of the doorway as like, when you make a choice, you go through a doorway?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah, that was part of it. So, and I also wanted a picture of India. And I haven't been to India I had 2 trips to India. I have to find what I have. But I think this is very typical of the architecture in India. But yes, that doorway is an important part of it. Okay, so just to remind you that this supports FAMR, and here are the links for ordering the calendars. You can get to the calendars from my page, that's a direct link. And just to remind you that what FAMR is, we have said 10 institutes around the world. You can see the number there. And we now have over 2,000 graduates, as I said. And so what we do, I'm particularly in the area of supporting the education of physicians and other healthcare professionals worldwide. So that's what we're working on. So we have 55 countries worldwide now, 10 regional institutes, and 21 years in service.
Impressive.
This was made a couple of years ago, it's really 24 years in service. Yeah. Okay, so next. And so are there any other questions? Here's another example of multi-language before we do the drawing.
Oh, you said that you create a bunch of images with quotes, and then people on your emailing list pick the ones that are going to go on the calendar. So if you wouldn't mind reviewing for me how many you make and how many choices people get. I've voted before, and I think it's the top 3 is what I've been. And does it make it really clear to you which ones people respond to? Like, how does that really work?
It's general,
You should probably repeat the question for the Zoom.
Okay, thank you. The question is, how do I pick from the 15 or 18 that create the final 12, really, because the cover's already done, because that's a separate issue. But that's a different country than the other ones.
Yes.
Okay. So the vote is to pick your top 3. And sometimes it's very, very clear, other times it's not. What usually comes out into kind of 3 categories. One is ones that clearly people want in, that were for this year. I can't remember which ones they were right now, sorry. And then there are ones that got 1 or 2 votes, so they clearly were not particularly in. And then there's that whole gray area in between. And that's where I make up most of my selection to make sure we cover all the countries, all the continents that I want to. So there usually is a group that comes up at the top.
But it's the ones that come up at the top, it sounds like it's just a portion.
Right.
Yeah, then you have to do a lot of discrimination amongst the others.
Yes. And like I chose Uganda this year. I had two with ripples in the water. One was from Graz, Austria, and one was from Uganda. And I decided I wanted to use the one from Uganda.
Because you needed Uganda for the variety of countries.
Yeah, so that would mean I'd have 2 from Africa.
Oh, yes.
2 different ones.
So when you take the vote about what next year's theme is going to be, you choose, like, you suggest, like, how many?
I think like 15.
15, that's
This is a process, by the way, in Lightroom now, Lightroom you can mask, which is what a new feature that has really helped a lot in that. That's like how I got this one done, was to mask this and then blurred this and made it black. likewise, in selecting, I will go into I use Claude as an AI program. And I'll go in and say, these are the words I've used up to now. And these are words I'm considering using. What words do you think would fit into kind of this general theme of wanting to help people have inspiration to get through these troubling times? And then it comes up with a list, and then I go back and forth and make my choice for 15. And again, I think that's a vote for one, I believe. I can't remember if it was 1 or 3. I think it probably give people a little more choice, you know. And but again, it was pretty clear this year, kindness was definitely up there. So let's do the drawing. Everyone has got their names in. Okay. Let's have our leader.
Oh, I'll read it, that's me. Okay, drum roll please.
And the winner is Lori Nelson. Okay.
Come on up, receive your gift.
What a pretty bowl. That's
That's what I call my rainbow bowl. So let's go back to the hour review. Just wonder whether you had any questions.
No, I found it fascinating to see the history, because I've known you all these years, and what you were doing behind the scenes in your mind. Very interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying. I appreciate it.
I have so many questions. What did you learn about kindness? Was there anything you didn't know about it before that doing this calendar made you learn?
Well, the agency part of it, that it is a choice. And the other one that really struck me was the one about the ripples, a ripple effect, a small act. So that's really been important to me, because I focus on how can I, as one individual, do something that helps better the world. And so in this kind of, so what can you can always smile at a teller at the bank, or someone that you're dealing with, and be friendly, for instance. So that's one way to be kind.
Yes, it does answer my question, and I wonder, like, can you think of an example from your own life where kindness was important to you, if somebody did you a kindness, or?
It comes back to random acts of kindness, maybe that people don't know.
That's fun.
But one, I remember a Elam alumni sent me, I can't remember what it was right now, but sent me something that sent me off in a whole new direction that was just very important to me. I'm blanking on it right now, but I really remember that moment so vividly, because I just not thought about moving in that direction.
That is cool.
So we never know.
No.
A random act of kindness, when it will have an impact. I spoke once and didn't think anything of it, and then, a year later I spoke again, and someone came up and said, "What you said was so important to me a year ago."
Mm-hmm.
You have
Yeah.
you have no idea. And that's happened to me professionally too. I gave a workshop with women faculty and spoke about something about the importance of writing groups. And a year later I ran into the person and said, we started a writing group.
Wow.
So you never, so I think these random acts of kindness are very important.
Do you have a question?
I've just, for you all to know, I've just put together a card, which is to be for my holiday collection, that uses this image in all these languages, but it says kindness has no borders.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you could tell the world 12 kindness things, you've already picked them. But do you have a winner from all of those 12 of like if do you think there's any quotes in there that meet the political moment of the day, or
Well, I think Franklin D. Roosevelt one, certainly does.
that would be a winner?
Yeah,
Okay.
for US right now, yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes me think about how Franklin D. Roosevelt did so many good things, and yet he had his blind spots. And it's like, so many presidents in the 20th century did so many good things, and then totally blew it in other ways. And it's like, it's so hard to be a perfect president.
It's so
And
hard
that's
to
not
be a
just-
perfect person.
Oh, I
And
know.
it's not just our century, I mean, George Washington owned slaves.
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah, it's not just presidents, it's all of us.
But I'm thinking about Roosevelt, and he did wonderful things for the country. And the book that I'm reading, Color of Law, says that the Roosevelt administration was sincerely anti-segregationist, but not very strong, not very strongly. He didn't support he didn't support integration in a very strong way. Then I'm thinking about what's his name, Lyndon Johnson, who signed the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
But then, as far as the Vietnam War went,
Yeah,
not so good.
right. No, they're all flawed.
Yes, they're all flawed.
Do you see any counter movements towards cruelty being the point? Like, is there a way for kids to get into making kindness cool again, do you think, or?
I wish there were.
Yeah, that's
I think we definitely
That's
need.
exactly what I've been wondering.
Yeah? What do you guys think? Is there a way?
Yeah, I'm a member, not very active member, of a group called Artists for Civic Action or something like that.
Oh,
And I think they would be able to create something that would attract the young people.
Well, and it's a taught skill. In Hawaii, they use a program that teaches social emotional tools and skills and awareness, and the fact that if there is a bully in the classroom, the rest of the kids can shut that down right away if they're willing to engage the bully as, why are you being mean to someone? Sometimes that's all it takes, is asking that question of a little kid to make them stop being mean to someone. Because they feel the disapproval in your voice and they want approval. So, but we taught that very actively in the schools where I was teaching.
In Hawaii, but.
In
not
Hawaii.
sure- not sure
It's a nationally available program. It's called Second Steps, and there's a lot of programs like that, always supported anti-bullying specifically, but recommended that everyone should be teaching social skills along with reading and math and the other things. Because your success in life is much more dependent on are you a nice person than it is on can you do complicated mathematical formulas. So it's a teachable skill. And it's a human skill that we probably ought to put more effort into teaching systematically.
Yeah,
I don't think John could hear that. I think that's really a very important point you're making. John, Laurie is telling us about the school system in Hawaii where they teach social skills to elementary students. So go ahead.
It's a particular program that we use called Second Steps, but it started in pre-K and it went all the way through 12. The older the kids got, the harder it was to get teachers to implement the program with fidelity. But if you teach preschoolers to be kind to each other and to recognize various emotions, I mean, we had picture cards with facial expressions, and we'd say, how does this person feel? How does this person feel? And you teach them to recognize how the other person feels based on what expression they're demonstrating. And you teach them how to respond to that. And if you have bullies in the classroom, the other students know to say, "You were just mean to him. Well, I don't like that." And we also teach them how to deal with being angry and how to deal with being disappointed, and 5 ways that avoid throwing something across the room as a choice. Although we had one kid, we had a circle where we said to the kids, "And how do your parents handle it when they're upset?" And one little guy raised his hand and said, "My mom throws plates at the wall till she feels better." That was interesting. And we now understand why that kid threw things, but we also gave him 5 different things he could offer to his mom as a better alternative. And he went home and told his mom all about it, and then we heard about it. But you can teach kindness, you can teach social skills, and we need to do that. It took 30 minutes twice a week to have a whole classroom of kids who were sensitive to the feelings of the other kids in the classroom and to the teachers.
Something I'd like to add to that. And I want to say something about differences and disabilities. I think that sometimes parents and teachers ask children to be compassionate and inclusive, and sometimes they ask too much of children and they don't give children the tools that they need to do that. And I'm thinking about a story I read. It's a little book called Up Road Slowly by Irene Hunt. It was published in the 60s. And it's about a little girl who was orphaned. And so she was about 10. And in her class there was a little girl who was cognitively impaired and also never bathed, because her family didn't believe in taking baths. And so this little girl was going to have a party, a birthday party, and invite her whole class. Except she didn't want to invite Aggie, because Aggie smelled and Aggie was not quite all there. And her aunt, who was raising her, said, "Well, if you don't invite her, you can't have the party." And that was like the end of the conversation. And it's like, if you ask children to include someone who's really hard to be around, I think that asks more of you than just saying, "You have to." Figure out a way to do that in a way that works. And adults are the same way. They don't want to include people who are hard to be around sometimes. If we ask children to do things that we're not willing to do in our own lives, that's hypocrisy. So, and yeah, kindness it can be difficult and challenging.
I think that goes back to Laurie's curriculum that is so helpful to teach. Okay.
Yeah, I also. Hi, I'm Liz. I'm the tech person, so I don't often step out in front of the camera. And one thing I really wanted to thank you for was putting a lizard in, because
Yes.
I don't see those often associated with like the kindness and the cuddlier emotions. Like you would think that would be a kitten or a puppy or something, but no, like a lizard. And I think it matters because sometimes when you see somebody and they're like spiky and mean and they don't seem that nice, that's just like an outward shell, and there is in fact kindness inside. I had a teacher who I really didn't get along with, but this person was also in a like administrative role, and they noticed that my dad was between jobs, and I would come to school at college every day with ramen noodles, and that's it. And they actually got me signed up to once a week the Bean Hall would put on a full spread of food, and all the people who were paid on the meal plan could get in on it. I didn't have a meal plan, but they put me on there for free. And even though I've had a hard time with that person, I still remember that kindness. And I wanted to say that sometimes it can come from unexpected places. And I love the idea of waking up and seeing a thing to remind me to be kind every morning. I think that's a great place to put it.
That's
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Well, thank you
very much. It's always wonderful. And so next month we have Cara Don coming to talk to us about Death Cafe. Now normally we've been meeting on the second Saturday of the month, but in October that's Charter Day weekend in Brunathan, so we'll probably move it up to the first,
Okay.
which I think is the 4th of October.
That sounds,
And then I can got a blank space for the rest of the year, so if anybody's got suggestions, on the Deborah's Tree website, there's a place under events where you can nominate yourself or another speaker to be a brunch speaker. So thank you.
Da-da-da. There's a lot of noise on the evening news. Everybody shouting, nobody moves. We draw our lines in a hard sand, pointing fingers, clenched up hands. But I saw a light on a broken street, someone there in a stranger's hour of need. Just a smile, just a helping hand. It felt like something we should understand. We gotta make kindness cool again. Let it rise today. Make kindness real again. Let cruelty fall away. Love your neighbor, help a friend. That's how broken hearts can mend. If we're gonna heal, we need to begin to make kindness cool again. Yeah. Check on your neighbor, know their name. The smallest spark can set cold hearts aflame. An open door, sharing a meal. Enough kind deeds make a better world real. Charity's not just spare change, it's our priorities rearrange. When you give more than you plan to give, you'll discover what it means to live. Put the phones down, look around. Every heart's beating with the same sound. Yeah, empathy has the power to save a life. Listen more, don't keep score, choose to play nice. You know we gotta make kindness cool